Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be describing the anatomy of inner ear. So inner ear is also called internal ear. Internal ear or inner ear, it is divided into two parts. One is the bony labyrinth and other one is the membranous labyrinth. So when we are talking of labyrinth, we are dealing with inner ear. So bony labyrinth, it has three parts: a central chamber which is called vestibule, then three semicircular canals and cochlea. And membranous labyrinth, it has four parts: the cochlear duct which corresponds to cochlea, the utricle and saccule which are present in the central chamber vestibule, the semicircular ducts which correspond to the semicircular canals, and the endolymphatic duct and sac. So we'll see each structure one by one. First, I'll talk about the bony labyrinth. So this is a pictorial representation of the bony labyrinth. Here we can see that first part is the cochlea, then this is the central chamber or the vestibule, and the three semicircular canals, that is superior, posterior and lateral. Lateral is also called horizontal semicircular canal. Now the vestibule or the central chamber of the bony labyrinth. It has two recesses in the medial wall. One is the spherical recess which harbors the saccule, and another one is the elliptical recess which harbors the utricle. Then the vestibule, it has an opening, that is aqueduct of vestibule, for the endolymphatic duct, and it has five openings for the three semicircular canals in the posterior superior part. So if we see the structures inside the vestibule, it has two recesses for utricle and saccule. It has five openings and one another opening for the which is called aqueduct of vestibule, which is for the endolymphatic duct to pass. Then semicircular canals, they are three: lateral or horizontal, posterior and superior, and they are arranged at right angle to each other. Each semicircular canal has two ends. One is the ampulated and another one is the non-ampulated. So we think that there should be total six ends. However, the non-ampulated ends of the posterior and the superior canals, they unite to form crus commune. So three semicircular canals, they have five openings inside the vestibule. Because of this crus commune, the non-ampulated ends of posterior and superior unite. So instead of six, there are only five openings of the three semicircular canals. Then cochlea. Cochlea, it is a coiled tube-like structure with 2.5 to 2.75 turns around a central bony pyramid which is called modulus. The cochlea, it has three chambers. The upper one is the scala vestibuli, uh, which starts from the footplate of stapes. Then scala media, which is a part of membranous labyrinth, also called membranous cochlea, and the lowermost part, it is the scala tympani, which is closed by the secondary tympanic membrane. Then helicotrema, it is the apex of the cochlea, where the upper and the lower chambers, that is scala vestibuli and scala tympani, they communicate. And scala tympani, it is connected with the subarachnoid space through aqueduct of cochlea. So here we can see that this is the cochlea, this is the upper chamber vestibuli, this is middle chamber scala media, and this is lower chamber scala tympani. So we can remember like VMT. Okay, so scala vestibuli is separated from the middle ear with stapes footplate. Scala tympani, it is separated from the middle ear through this round window membrane, sometimes also called secondary tympanic membrane. And the apex of the cochlea, it is called helicotrema, where scala vestibuli, it communicates with scala tympani. And scala tympani, it communicates with the subarachnoid space, which has CSF, through a tube which is called aqueduct of cochlea. This is cochlea. As we can see that there are three chambers. scala vestibuli, scala media, and scala tympani. This is the cut section of the cochlea. And scala vestibuli, it is separated from scala media through Reisner's membrane, and scala media, it is separated from scala tympani through basilar membrane. Now the details of this membranous cochlea we'll see in the membranous labyrinth. So again here we can see that cut section of the cochlea, where we can see that these are the basal turns, these are the middle turns, and these are the apical turns. Then this is the central bony pyramid. Here we can see this is the bony pyramid, which is called modulus, and the axons of the hair cells, they form the spiral ganglia, and ultimately all these spiral ganglia, they unite to form the cochlear nerve, which combines with the vestibular nerve to form the eighth nerve, or the vestibulocochlear nerve. So we saw about the bony labyrinth. Now moving on to the membranous labyrinth. So membranous labyrinth has cochlear duct, utricle saccule, semicircular ducts, and endolymphatic duct and sac. So first is the cochlear duct of the membranous labyrinth. It is also called membrane scala media. In the previous figure, this is the same one I told you, that this is the middle chamber of the cochlea, which is called scala media. It is connected to the saccule by ductus reunions. So scala media, it is connected to saccule by a duct which is called ductus reunions. Then the Reisner's membrane, it separates scala vestibuli from scala media. Then stria vascularis, it is the lining of the scala media which secretes the endolymph. So this is called stria vascularis. Then basilar membrane, it separates the membranous cochlea from the scala tympani, and the length of the basilar membrane increases from base to apex. So the higher frequencies, they are more represented at base, and the lower frequencies are represented at apex of the cochlea. Then another part of the membranous labyrinth, that is the utricle and the saccule, they receive the 5 openings of the 3 semicircular canals, and the utricle, it is connected to saccule through a utriculo-saccular duct. The sensory epithelium, it is called, of the utricle and saccule, it is called macula, which is responsible for linear acceleration. And in Meniere's disease, the distended saccule lies against the stapes footplate and can be surgically decompressed. So this is the clinical importance of the utricle and saccule. Then the 3 semicircular ducts, they correspond to the semicircular canals of the bony labyrinth. They open in the utricle, and the ampullated end of each duct, it contains a thickened ridge of neuroepithelium which is called crista ampullaris, and this is responsible for angular acceleration. Like we saw that the macula of the utricle and saccule, it was responsible for linear acceleration and deceleration. Similarly, crista of semicircular ducts, of the ampullated ends of the semicircular ducts, it is responsible for angular acceleration. Then endolymphatic duct and sac. These are formed by the ducts from the utricle and the saccule. So the utriculosaccular duct, it continues at the endolymphatic duct, and this duct passes through the vestibular aqueduct, that is the bony labyrinth. The vestibule, it has an opening, as I told you previously, through which the endolymphatic duct passes, and it terminates into the endolymphatic sac, which lies in the subdural space on the posterior surface of the petrous bone. And this sac is opened for drainage or shunt operation in Meniere's disease. In Meniere's disease, there is excessive production of endolymph or decreased absorption. So it increases the endolymphatic pressure, and that pressure is decompressed by uh, opening this sac or doing a shunt surgery. So here it is a pictorial representation of the membranous labyrinth. Here we can see this is the membranous cochlea or the cochlear duct. It is connected to the saccule through ductus reunions. Then the utricle and the saccule, they are connected through a duct which is called reticular duct, which continues at the endolymphatic duct and ends into the endolymphatic sac present in the subdural space. This endolymphatic duct passes through the bony labyrinth through aqueduct of through the vestibular aqueduct. And here we can see these are the three semicircular ducts. The non-ambulated end of posterior and the superior, it combines to form a crus commune. So three ducts, they enter the utricle through five openings. Now the inner ear fluids. So there are two types of fluids in the inner ear. The perilymph, which is present on the peripheral chambers, that is scala vestibuli and tympani, and the endolymph. So first we'll see the perilymph. It resembles more of extracellular fluid, which is rich in sodium and it has less potassium. It fills the space between the bony and the membranous labyrinth, and it communicates with the CSF through aqueduct of cochlea. It is a filtrate of the blood serum and is formed by the capillaries of the spiral ligament, and it is a direct continuation of the cerebrospinal fluid. So it is more similar in composition biochemically to the CSF, perilymph. Then another fluid is endolymph, which fills the membranous labyrinth. It resembles the intracellular fluid, which is rich in potassium ions, and it is secreted by the secretory cells of the stria vascularis. Now there are two theories of circulation of this endolymph. First is the longitudinal flow, second one is the radial flow. So in longitudinal flow, it is said that from cochlea, that is the stria vascularis, forms the endolymph. From cochlea it goes to the saccule through ductus reunions and utricle, and then through the endolymphatic duct, which is absorbed through the endolymphatic sac in the subdural space. So this is one theory. Another theory is that of radial flow. So here we can see these two theories, that endolymph is produced here, then it goes into the utricle saccule, and from endolymphatic duct it is absorbed through the endolymphatic sac. So this is longitudinal flow. This is the radial flow, in which it is postulated that the endolymph is secreted from the stria vascularis and again it is absorbed back from the stria vascularis. So this is the radial flow theory of endolymph circulation. This table shows the differences in the two fluids as compared to CSF. So here we can see that sodium ions, they are more in the perilymph, which is near to CSF, and less in endolymph. Potassium ions on the other hand, they are more in endolymph and less in perilymph, and also less in CSF. Then proteins, they are more in perilymph as compared to endolymph, but in CSF proteins are less than both endolymph and perilymph. And glucose, the perilymph is more similar to CSF. Regarding glucose, it is more in CSF and perilymph as compared to endolymph. So these are the differences in biochemical composition of inner ear fluids. Now the blood supply of the labyrinth, the main artery is the labyrinthine artery, which is a branch of anterior inferior cerebellar artery. It gives common cochlear artery and anterior vestibular. Anterior vestibular supplies the utricle and the lateral and the superior canals. While common cochlear, it further divides into vestibulocochlear and main cochlear. This main cochlear supplies cochlea in 80% of the subjects, while the vestibulocochlear branch again gives two branches, cochlear branch and posterior vestibular branch. In the remaining 20% subjects, sometimes this branch supplies the cochlea, while the posterior vestibular, it supplies the saccule and the posterior canal. So this is the blood supply of labyrinth. The venous drainage, it is through the internal auditory vein, vein of the cochlear aqueduct, and vein of the vestibular aqueduct. All these, they drain into the lateral venous sinus. Thank you.